the Awaken Your Ego podcast with Joanne and Ariana. We are a health podcast that explores topics to do with biohacking and self-discovery.
We are also on the self-discovery journey, and we want to attract listeners that are doing the same in order to help them realize they're not alone.
Ego differs from conventional medical spas and wellness centers. We believe that the secret to maximizing one's sense of self is in addressing the entire person, inside and out. We provide state-of-the-art aesthetic treatments as well as lifestyle management and holistic health solutions. We aim to please with our efficient and friendly customer service and guarantee with our scientifically proven alternative therapies and lifestyle optimizations that every patient will leave our care with a boosted ego. Our goal is to help our patients realize the necessity of self-care and to encourage them to prioritize their health and wellness goals. When we make self-care and confidence a priority, then we're able to bring to light our potential for happiness and growth. This podcast is a way to expand our reach so that we are able to spread the word on the importance of self, the whole self, inside and out.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. Please reach out to your medical provider if you have questions about any of the treatments we discuss to see if it's a right fit for you. Now on to our show. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for another episode of Awaken Your Ego. Today, we have Jeff Burrow as a guest, and he's also one of our speakers for our upcoming event, the Wellness Workshop. So Ariana's going to introduce him for us.
Yes, thanks for coming, Jeff.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, so a little bit about Jeff. He's Sierra Ocean founder, and he focuses on the wealth management needs of clients all across the country. A large portion of his clients are business owners as he is. He improves the lives of entrepreneurial families by working with them on investment policy, retirement planning, alternative investments, tax strategizing, and estate planning. He began his career after being exposed to it at a young age. Jeff had the unfortunate experience of having his father pass away when he was just 16 years old. As a bright student who had already begun to develop an interest in business and finance, he accompanied his young, newly widowed mother to meet with financial advisors and navigate the often murky waters of receiving good financial advice. Little did they know that the advisors they spoke to were all salespeople selling products. His mother never received good advice on what it takes to become financially strong. After Jeff graduated magna cum laude from UC Santa Barbara, he set his sights on a career in financial planning and advice. He knew that people wanted to develop relationships with advisors they could trust, who spoke like real people, not over people's heads, and were knowledgeable enough to give them an edge in their family's personal finances. Jeff is a certified financial planner professional and began his financial career with Morgan Stanley in the late 1990s. He's a leader in his industry, having co-authored the book FlexScore, Financial Advice for the Rest of Us, and holds a patent, the financial industry's first personal finance health score that provides conflict-free advice. Jeff has also hosted his own personal finance weekly radio show, Making Dollars and Cents, and produced the 1-minute market recap for several radio stations from 2001 to 2009. Once you guys hear his voice, you'll get it. Mm-hmm. After co-founding his own independent advisory firm known as Valley Wealth in 2008, he merged with Goldman Sachs' personal financial management predecessor firm, United Capital Financial Advisors, in 2014. In 2021, he decided again to leave Wall Street and create his own independent advice company, Sierra Ocean, LLC. Jeff is a member of the Stanislaus County Estate Planning Council, a founding member of the Transfer of Wealth Technical Advisory Committee for the Stanislaus Community Foundation, and has been a board member for the Boys and Girls Club of Stanislaus County, as well as the State Theater. Born and raised in the Central Valley of California, Jeff is happy to live in the same area where he grew up in Ripon, California. He and his wife, Nicole, keep busy raising their 3 children, and in his free time, he enjoys golfing, hiking, and going to the beach with his family.
Wow. I got to tell you, I should have given you the shorter bio.
You're a lot cooler than I realized.
Well,
if I would have read the bio beforehand. No, I'm just kidding.
Exactly.
No, I love it. I love that your story began from a very young age. Your interest in finances it started.
It did. It started. Well, and it was one of these things too, where it was started from an unfortunate experience, and sometimes you, as a young person, look at, and I think as a young boy, you look at money as a cool thing. I can buy fancy cars, it can give me attention. But of course, you learn quickly after you sort of start making money that it's actually something you need for more important things and not just the fun stuff. But when my dad passed away at 16, my dad, or at 48 when he died, I was 16, didn't know anything, and there was a lot of kind of exposure of, wow, my parents had not really planned well, and had a little bit of life insurance, and that was it. So got started trying to help my mom figure out how to invest that in high school.
And when did you find out, like, hey, this is my passion, this is where I should head? Was it just like after like kind of seeing her struggle, or did something click where you're like, hey, this is for me?
So I found in college that, frankly, I was a pre-med major for 2 years. I wanted to help people, right? So I saw this idea of being able to help people in a way that was hopefully, what I received, because I played a lot of basketball, a very tall person, and played a lot of basketball. And every time I'd have a knee issue or a back issue, the doctors would kind of work me through it, and I'd be, this is pretty neat. Maybe I want to do that. Well, I started getting a little faint of blood, and every time I get exposed more to real medical situations, I was like, okay, I'll keep the helping people thing, but I don't know if medicine is going to be the way to do it. So anyway, I decided to take one of those career aptitude exams in college. They offer them for free. It's really career resource offices. And I was like, well, what's this thing going to do? Take an hour of my life, and at worst, it's going to give me some bogus idea of what it is I'm supposed to do with myself. Well, as it turns out, it says your number one profession would be a financial planner, helping people with their money, because you help people, you cure problems, right? You prescribe solutions. And I thought, this is kind of like a doctor with money. My goodness. So anyway, I'm 22, graduate, and got started working for a big firm called Morgan Stanley, right out of the Wall Street world. So yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Before we dive deeper.
Yes, we want to ask you some rapid fire questions. Oh, yeah. So this is just some fun facts about you.
Okay. Pressure's on.
Phone.
Yes.
Oh, you have your phone. Okay, cool.
Okay, so the goal is just to answer whatever comes to mind as quick as possible.
All right.
And we have a minute. So these are going to be would you rather, or certain questions. So it's one or the other. Okay. Ready, go. Would you rather sleep in late or take a long midday nap?
I was sleeping late.
Cannonball into the pool or dip a toe first?
Oh, cannonball that thing.
Fresh food or fried food?
Fresh.
Are you cautious or bold?
Bold.
Learn by watching or learn by doing?
I would rather watch first, because I don't want to make that big first mistake. I'm a little more cautious there.
Do you prefer social time or alone time?
Oh, gosh, I'm 50-50 on that one. I get energized sometimes by being around people, but then I'm just like out of energy after too long. So it's 50-50.
Are you more of a thinker or a doer?
Oh, man, another one. I overthink things. I'm a thinker.
Me too. Street smart or book smart?
Easy, book smart.
Do you prefer driving or flying?
I drive, yeah.
Would you rather travel to the past or to the future?
Wow, the past.
Okay. Do you kill bugs or do you find them a safe place outside?
Oh, they're destroyed. They're done.
Expensive.
It. Oh, that's it.
All right.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You're pretty good there.
Oh, thank you.
I think you won.
What do I win?
TBD. That's TBD.
Nice.
You get bragging rights.
I love that. More time.
So, to start, what would you say is the most fulfilling part of what you do?
Yeah, it does go back to helping people. And what's funny about money is that everybody has an amount that makes them stressed out. And it's interesting. No matter how much you have, you always assume if you had more, things would be better. And through my life experience being in this industry, I get to meet with people that have tens of millions of dollars. My client's has $70 million. And one of the funniest things he says to me every time we get together is, hey, man, am I rich yet? Because he doesn't actually feel like he's made it. He gets it. He's got enough. But so for me, it's very rewarding to be with somebody and see that from the beginning of the relationship, they go from, I'm not sure what I'm doing here, to, okay, I'm a little more relaxed. Everything's baby steps. And as long as I'm on a path to improve myself, I feel like I'm making progress, right? It's not an overnight solution. No one's going to become so-called rich or wealthy, quickly. And as you know, any get rich quick scheme rarely works. So getting rich slowly does. So as long as people know how to do that, that is what makes my job fun, is seeing people finally relax and feel like they're on track.
And do you feel like it's hard to coach people through that point of like, okay, let's be patient, consistent? You know, I mean, I feel like as a client that's kind of coming to you, I would be that person that's like, all right, let's go, let's do this. Like, let's make things happen. And I want to see it like now. Sure. But I know the money game, it has to be
There's some immediate improvements you can make, but you're right. The slow and steady usually will do a little bit better. I even think the business, the ego is in, right? Where if somebody just assumes that by sort of making the outside look better, and that's the end, it's not, right? The inside catches up pretty quickly. And I think keeping up with the Joneses is the issue that we've all been told, don't do that. Don't buy the thing that's going to make you look rich because it's going to make you poor. But somehow we sort of fall into that trap from time to time. So I'm not some, huge authority on you got to always save every single dime and never spend. It's a balance, right? So like you've said, the idea of being confident but patient, it's hard. Everybody wants to feel like they're rich now.
Yeah.
So it's tough.
So where does one start when they're trying to learn more about optimizing their financial status or wellness?
Yeah, the first thing, it really doesn't matter where you are in your lifestyle or your age. It's understanding what it takes right now to get from the 1st of the month to the 30th of the month. I mean, that's different for everybody. And if it's $5,000, if it's $8,000, if it's $34,000, whatever that amount is, you got to kind of know what it is, right? If I say to somebody, hey, you need to start budgeting, what do you think the first thing that's going to happen? They're going to run out the room. They're not going to be apt to really want to get involved with that. And I don't think you need to budget as much as just first be aware of what it takes. So if you are spending, a certain amount of money and we can find ways to cut back, great. But until you know what you're really spending, that's the first step. So that's it. And then secondly, lifestyle inflation. We all sort of do that, right? Where we make a certain amount of money, maybe in our 20s we're getting our career going. In our 30s we feel a little more stable, but we still don't feel like we've made it yet. But at some point you've got to stop rising with how much income you're making, and you can just start saving more. But some people don't do that. I've got clients that came to me in their early 50s and they said, I want to retire in about 10 to 15 years. Do you think I can? Well, not with the amount of savings you're doing right now. So it's sort of that last lap where they have to really start putting money away. So I think the earlier you can understand what it takes for you to live a month in the lifestyle you're accustomed to, really what that money, what the dollar amount is, that's key.
And what would you say is the ideal age that you should start planning for the future?
Yesterday. I mean, anytime you are sitting down and thinking about your life, I'll say this, people are very concerned most about money, but I will say that time's way more valuable, right? You can always find a way to make more money. You can always find a way to possibly work a little bit longer or have a side hustle or some way to be a little more financially secure. But there's one thing you can never obtain more of, and that's time. And so the more time that you take to get yourself on track, you're wasting the biggest opportunity that you have. So the earliest that you could do it. And let's be honest, when we grow up in the households we grow up in, rarely are you formally taught about financial literacy. It just doesn't happen.
Or in school even. Yeah, it's like that's not on the docket.
School. And you might observe people that are successful, but they don't really sit down sometimes and tell you how to do it. So sometimes our parents are teaching us and we observe it, but it's not formal education. We see what they're doing. We end up doing it ourselves sometimes. And my mom, bless her heart, she's listened to this. She'll probably admit that, yeah, she might have done a little better when she was younger and I was growing up. But as early as you can, kind of get a grasp of, what's important to you. That's the best thing.
Well, and like seeing a financial advisor, I feel like a lot of people have it in their mind. That's only if I have millions of dollars. There's no way I could afford it. But I feel like, do you feel like someone, say like me, seeking out someone like you, even though I haven't made it yet and I don't feel rich, could that be affordable?
It's a good question. I mean, this industry is set up to work with wealthy people. And it's primarily because there's only about 300,000 financial advisors that have the right credentials to sort of help people. But there's way more people that need help. And if financial coaching can become more of an industry, right now it's sort of a burgeoning industry where And I'll tell you the difference. Financial advice is when you say, I have a situation, what should I do? And I give you very specific prescriptive action. This is what you need to do. Okay. Financial coaching is a little bit like when you go to the gym and they say you need to eat better and work out a little bit more. And you're like, yeah, I knew that, but can you help me with that? That's not going to the doctor, but the doctor's going to say the same thing, right? But when you're getting the advice and the coaching to sort of help you motivate, which you already know you should be doing, that's coaching. And I think the coaching industry is just getting started. Frankly, I'm interested in getting more into it myself to help people because I don't have enough time to help everybody I want to.
Yeah.
But as far as being affordable to see a financial advisor, I mean, most have minimum fees. $2,500 to $5,000 is probably what you're going to find in some areas. So it's tough. And if somebody barely has $5,000, the last thing you want to do is hand it over to a financial advisor to tell you to do better. Yeah, it's tough.
Well, but what's awesome about, I feel like where we are nowadays, there's so many resources like that you can obtain online, on the internet, even financial coaches that you can find on flipping TikTok nowadays. I feel like, which obviously you want to have a trusted source, someone that you know is legit. I mean, you shouldn't take every advice out there, but I think it is pretty amazing that if we want to find it, we can seek it out. I mean, and we can find a lot of content on that. Not that I'm saying that would replace you or someone like you, but
I see it too, though. And what you mean on TikTok, or what you see on TikTok, I mean, I see what you mean, but as long as you're not listening to amateurs give you advice on how to invest your money into very specific things. Like if somebody said, hey, you need to put some more money into the stock market. Okay, generally speaking, it's probably not a bad idea. But if you've never invested before, you certainly need to know what you're getting yourself into. And I think we've all heard about cryptocurrency the last few years. And it's an easy come, easy go type thing where you see somebody making a lot of money and then you get excited about it. So you're like, well, I have this cash over here. Maybe I should do something with it. That person seems to know what they're doing. I'll just follow them. But guess what? In a year, their money's cut in half. And yours will be too. And this is what has happened. So I'm not saying to not invest in crypto if you know what you're doing. What I'm saying is just make sure you know what you're doing. There's never a blanket statement saying that always one thing is a good investment.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a wise caution because it's, the potential is always exciting and cool, but then the potential loss that you can see is also not what you're considering, and that's not so cool.
That's right.
That's right. You can't rub two pennies together. Like, that's not cool.
Exactly.
So are there any resources that you recommend for clients just to be educated? Like someone who maybe is just beginning, wanting to learn, and get informed. Are there any resources that you recommend? Yeah,
I mean, one of the first things people I think should do is hook themselves up either with their bank's cash flow kind of software that shows, tracking how much money is coming in and out of your account all the time. But maybe you find something like mint.com. If you've never used mint.com, it's a great service. Maybe we should get them to sponsor the show after I'm promoting them on here. But no, seriously, it is a really easy thing to simply spend money and say, I'll fix that next month, right? Well, it's Christmas, and so it's okay to spend a little bit more, right? Okay, well, now the spring has come and it's spring break, and it's a little bit easier to spend a little more money when you're traveling. And so there's always a reason to spend more money. And so if that's the issue, like, do you have an expense problem? You won't know that until you sort of evaluate it and track it consistently month over month and look at the trends. But I'll tell you, a lot of people, frankly, expense problem is one thing, but they might have an income problem, meaning they're sort of not asking for the raises. Or maybe they're in the same job they've been in for 10 years and they're just not pushing themselves hard enough. And this is not an easy thing. I'm not suggesting to ask your boss for a raise, should be an intimidating process. But some people probably could be making more money and they're just not. And so tracking your expenses is one thing, but if you haven't raised your income in 3 or 4 years, you got to find ways to do that too. They should be, expenses are going to go up with inflation. We've all seen that recently. But your income should be going up too. And so if you're not seeing that rise, that's something you need to track. So I think mint.com is a really good place to see that. There's so many educational books and like you say, free resources out there. So maybe towards the end of the show, I'll even give you my website. But but I mean, honestly, I'm working on something too from a financial literacy perspective that it's going to be free. That's just kind of courses you can take that you watch and 20 minutes later, you're like, glad I know that now. I wish I'd known that 10 years ago. Yeah. So there's stuff out there, but I'm trying to make it more available to people as well.
That's awesome that you're working on that.
Are there any resources that you personally use on a regular basis to stay informed?
I use the same thing. I use mint.com. And I'm just as human as everybody else. Actually, before the show, we were kind of talking about it, right? I mean, if you're spending money and, you're telling people to save money, you know, you sometimes can feel a little bit inauthentic if you feel you're not saving enough. So I have to do the same checks and balances. I have to go through and say, okay, am I maxing out my 401k? Great, done. You know, am I saving enough for the future of my children's education? Yes, check, done. And then once I've done all that, if I have some extra discretionary income, yeah, okay, I can spend it. You know, life's not about just saving everything. As they say, you can't take it with you. Although a very funny guy did tell me one time, he was worth a lot of money. He goes, who says I can't? I go, well, I'm not saying you can't. He goes, I'm going to put it all in my coffin with me. I go, okay,
wow.
sir. Enjoy your next life, right? I mean, people have ideas,
It's
but
like a
really,
Scrooge mentality.
yeah, right. It's like it's all mine. It's all mine. So yeah, I have to look at the same resources because again, it's easy for me to sometimes overspend a little bit. It happens.
Well, I love how you mentioned that balance because I feel like that's something I'm still young, but I'm still trying to plan on future financial wellness and retirement and kids and all of that. But ultimately, it's like, I don't want to just save money, like every penny, and then have a nice retirement. I'm like,
Right.
What's the point of life if I'm not enjoying it as I go? Obviously, within reason and having budgets and things like that. But I think sometimes a lot of people associate like the financial wellness or planning with like not having any fun right now.
That's right.
And it's so not true. It's about having like planned out fun.
Well, that's just it. You got to plan on it as opposed to just sort of run up on it and go, I want that now. And then you swipe the card, or these days it's even easier. You just tap it onto the device and need later. You don't have to sign anything. Out the door with whatever you need. And all of that's true. You got to save well, but you have to spend well too, right? And you just can't say yes to everything. You have to say no to some things. So it's a challenge. It's never easy. It's definitely a challenge.
Yeah. And then we touched on a little bit about retirement and kids, but what are some ways that you suggest that young people kind of start saving up for their little ones? Like as they start having kids, like what's a good way to kind of go about that? Or there are multiple things that you would say?
Yeah, I mean, there's different types of accounts. You know, one of the ways you can start saving is in what's called a custodial account. So you're in charge of it until your child is either 18 or 21. You can choose the age. I'm going to recommend you choose 21 because I was 18 once and I have an 18-year-old son. So
A lot changes from 18 to 21.
it's a lot that changes. And so, yes, 21 is probably a better age. But at the time that they become 21, then the account is sort of turned over to them. But it gives you plenty of time to start showing them the value of, hey, I'm putting $50 a month in here for you, $100 a month. The other cool thing about a custodial account is that you end up having a Christmas or a birthday, and grandma and grandpa or uncle and auntie or whomever is going to say, well, hey, Junior needs a little something. I'm going to give him a little whatever. And you're like, nah, they already got that, right? And nah, they don't really need that anymore. Well, I'd really like to give them something. So it's kind of, it's nice to have a place where somebody can actually deposit money where it's not coming out of your pocket.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
So now I get it. The kid's probably going to be like, hey, where's my video game or where's my fun toy? But at the end of the day, it's still very valuable. And in time, they'll definitely understand the value of that more. So like I've been teaching my kids for years the basics of some of this stuff. But, my son's a freshman in college now. And so, I'm not turning it over to him, but he can see what's in there and he can help make some of those investment choices. So slowly but surely is the way to go about it. I would say another thing when you're looking at college education for your kids and just financial education, when you go to college, the idea is that you're going to find a job, right? You're going to make more money than if you didn't go to college, or else why do it? But people sometimes don't do the basic equation of how much is going to cost for me to get this education, and is it really worth it? So I'm not suggesting you don't go to college, but if you go to private school for 4 years and get a degree that's going to only make you $65,000 a year, it's probably not worth it. It may not be.
Yeah.
But maybe it is if you're going to have a very specialized career with a doctorate that allows for you to make $200,000 a year. Maybe that's a little more apt. But again, that equation shouldn't always be, I'm going to make sure that I pay for my kids' college because they'll be better off. But you might not be.
That's such an old school thought process too.
Yeah.
Like my husband, he does construction, and I feel like he's always had this chip on his shoulder, like, my kids don't have to go to college. And my dad's so the opposite, like, you all have to go to college. It's like different mentalities,
Sure.
but obviously his dad and profession, it doesn't take college for them to figure out how to, have their profession. Like the debt, didn't pan out for that career.
My wealthiest clients did not have college degrees. They're all entrepreneurs that did not go through college. So I would say that going to college is not a prescription for anything other than a personal choice. But if you end up having, let's say, a blue collar household where nobody went to school, but everybody knows how to have a vocation and earn a living, you're learning work ethic, right? And that's a really good thing. So just make sure you know what you're doing in college. I've also had clients that are very, very pro private school. Like, my kids need to go to private school, private elementary, private high school, and they're going to go to a private college. Fine, good on you, that's fine. But if you're saying that because you think they're going to get a better education, it's not always the same thing. For sure, it's more costly.
Yeah.
And so, sometimes community college for 2 or 3 years, and then the least expensive state school for, 2 to 3 years. And I say 2 to 3 because you can't always get done in the time you like.
True.
So you got to plan on that too. That works too.
Oh, that's awesome.
Well, you've been giving us really good information, and we're really excited to have you come to our wellness workshop.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things that our guests can expect to hear from you then?
Well, I would say, for sure, I'm going to give you some motivation, but first I'll have to scare you a little bit, right? I'll have to remind you some of the things a lot of people forget about. Here's an example. People say, I'm too scared to invest, right? I don't like taking those risks. And I'll ask them, well, do you think that not investing is risk-free? There's a risk there too, right? What path are you on? So if you don't plan, you plan to fail, is what we've all heard before. So what I would think in the workshop, a lot of people will find is that the questions of what the basics are going to be answered, but also the reasons they should be acting now and not later. I mean, really motivating you. The time is of the essence. There's so many people that they get to an age where they want to retire, but they don't have the financial ability to. So, if you're listening right now and you hear this question and the first thing that comes to mind is a number, and I ask you, when is retirement? And you start thinking 65, 62. That's not it. Retirement's when your financial ability matches your desire to no longer work. So most people hit the desire to no longer work well earlier than their financial ability.
I'm there.
Already, right?
I'm in my 30s. I'm there.
So you can't just wait for the clock to go and then all of a sudden you're age 62 and magically you can retire. That's not how it works. So the earlier you start, the earlier you can retire, if you think of it that way. So yeah, the workshop, I have a lot of that in there. Straight talk, but hopefully a lot of motivation too.
Yeah.
And then how much money is enough for clients to retire?
Well, like we said, one of the first things we could do is what's it take to live 30 days in your lifestyle, right? So once you know that, the answer is a lot easier. The frank answer, though, let's say you've got $1 million, okay? It's going to provide some income. So along with Social Security, you might be able to replace, let's say, $60,000 to $70,000 a year in income, okay? But that's $1 million. So you'd have to have $2 million, which is a lot of money to save in order to have a decent, I wouldn't say a decent, but if you need 6 figures of retirement income, some people think they do, some people actually do. They're used to that. So you've got to save a lot. And again, the longer you wait, the tougher it's going to be. So saving's one thing. The investing side is a lot more complex and there's a lot more choices. And obviously in another episode, if we have more time, we could talk about that. But I've heard one of your other episodes about real estate, right? It's not just the stock market. You should look into real estate. And businesses, if people are a business entrepreneurial type, owning a business can provide a lot of income, but also equity for you if you find a way to sell that in the future. So lots of different ways that you can provide for yourself.
Yeah. Well, Jeff, what's a way that you handle, because you sound like a very productive, busy person, how do you handle your whole work-life balance?
Well, is my wife here?
She'll say she doesn't.
She'll clarify if I don't actually tell you the truth, but it's not easy. It's tough. And I do like to think of myself as productive, but I have a coach that helps me with a lot of these things. And literally last week, it's funny you should bring it up because he did say to me, Jeff, tell me how you're making sure that you are scheduling relaxation. Because when you sit around doing nothing, you tend to be a little bit antsy, aren't you? And I don't think that's an uncommon thing. A lot of people that are very productive have a hard time with downtime. They feel like I could doing something much better with this downtime. All right, there's this project I could do, and there's that project, but it's a never-ending list. And so, how do I do work-life balance? I have to schedule off time, and I have to go home at a certain time. When you own your own business, you could be working all the time, and sometimes you need to work more. So part of it's, I think, scheduling. I think the other part, especially if you've got a partner that's relying on you to help with other things in your life, like the house and the kids, I've got to communicate really well with my wife. And so I do a good job of that sometimes I don't. But, the honest answer is that if you're just constantly focused, I think, on work, then you're not doing well. You're going to get ill. I try to take care of myself, working out, meditate, the whole thing. You know, a lot of that's very important. And people hear it a lot. Sometimes they don't do it. But yeah, it's the full thing. You've got to make sure that you're having time with friends and you feel like you've got a community around you and you're not just an isolated warrior working all the time. Because yes, there's a lot of ego gratification in that. But if that's all you're getting, you know, you're not getting the full picture.
For sure. Yeah. And then you end up depleted and it's like everything is harder.
Yep.
It's like, I think for me, what I've realized, because I fell into that game of like work, no balance. It was just very much like putting everything into just work life. And I finally found myself just very depleted and exhausted. And I'm like, why does everything seem so difficult and taxing? And it's because I wasn't investing in myself at all. And so, like you said, I've had to schedule working out, quiet time, but I've had to do a lot of work on my mentality. Because like you said, I used to feel like I was wasting time all the time. So even when I was scheduled to relax, it was hard for me to not still be thinking about the coulda, shoulda, wouldas in the moment. And so for me, I've been doing a lot of like Reiki and different things to help like my mindset of like allowing, allowing myself to feel relaxation and to cherish it and to feel like it's a necessary thing, not like an optional thing.
That's right.
But it's a hard switch. I'm still working on switching that in my mind.
Well, yeah, that internal pressure that you're talking about too, of like, you know, you feel a certain way. We kind of program ourselves at a young age, but it comes from external circumstances, either our own household, the culture. I mean, my goodness, right? Working moms, right?
Yeah.
I don't feel that pressure. I don't have that because I'm as a father, right? You're supposed to be the warrior out there working all the time, right? If you're away from the house, it's okay. But when a mom tries to do that, there's a certain, sort of societal pressure. Like, really, are you going to work all the time? Or
Your
do you
poor
think you're gonna be a
children.
mom too,
Your poor
right?
children. Yeah.
Yes, that's tough, right? I can only imagine because I'm feeling pressure to make sure that I'm, doing better than my buddies because that's the classic guy thing. But as a mother, you have to both be, working and also be the best mom you can be, and then that's got to be tough. So, really, I mean, I like what you guys are doing too with the clinic because it's not just about how you look, right?
Yes.
It has to be about how you feel too. The mental journey is super important.
One, what are some ways that you feel like your clients have been able to change once they're more financially secure? Like, how does that affect them overall?
Honestly, the spending is a little more guilt-free, right? They'll come to me and they'll be like, oh, it's so cool. I actually upgraded to first class because you said we could afford it, and that was great. That 10-hour flight wasn't nearly as bad. Now, if you upgrade all the time when you're not able to save the money, right, it's tough. So they sacrificed, and then it's sort of permission to spend once they have a plan. And so I think that's a lot of what they do. It's upgrading their flight, right?
Well, and when it comes to finances, ignorance isn't bliss, right? Like you're saying, like you need to let yourself be aware and know. And it's like, I feel like when we try to not look at it and just assume we have the money, it's like, that's also very stressful. I'm like, dang it, do I got this? Like, is this okay?
Yeah, your head's buried in the sand and then the world's going on around you. And I got to tell you, the clock continues to tick, right? So, people want to know what the best investment is. And I'm like, a time machine, right? And they're like, oh, so you can go into the future and you could see what the best investments are. I'm like, no, so you can go to the past and do better.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, I never thought it from that perspective. So yeah, that's one way to think of it.
I love it. So do you currently have any goals or projects that you're working on?
Oh, wow. That'll be part 2 for a longer episode. I do. I am working on a few things. One of the things I'm very excited about is this idea that, as I said earlier, coaching, right, where financial advice can be one-on-one, right, contractual with a client. Here are the objectives we're going to fulfill, check this box, check that box. But just literacy, it's not taught in school. And so I'm working on sort of a digital coaching platform for financial literacy online. It's called Wealthies, EASE. And if you want to be wealthy, it's not going to be easy, right? But the steps you can take are absolutely manageable. And you can start at any age doing better. If you're coming to me and you want to revolutionize your financial life and you're a few years from, being 60-something, you may not have the energy or the time to continue to work. But as I say, the earlier the better. And there's a lot of, like you say, the TikTok generation. I mean, teenagers, kids in their 20s. I say kids, I'm in my mid-40s, so everybody, these days, social media is a kid to me. But yes, I want to get out there and help people because solid financial advice needs to be given. But even before that, it's the coaching of the basics. What do you need to know about money? Just so you can feel confident about what you're doing. So yeah, if you want to find out more about that, my website is jeffburrow.com. JEFFBURROW.com. And there'll be information about that. I do have a company called Sierra Ocean, which is my financial and investment advisory firm. Honestly, that's very specialized work, and most people, or if they're selling a business for a lot of money and they need to figure out how to kind of take the money to the next level after that, that's what I do for them. But yeah, Wealth Ease is something that's going to be a much a broad platform for just about everybody, and that's the idea there.
That's really cool.
Yeah. And I love that, because for me personally, I feel like I'm someone that needs to start like at ground zero, only because numbers and all of those things, they've always intimidated me.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's certain words that I get hung up with. I'm like, oh, I don't understand what that means.
Okay.
So then I kind of get lost in it. But, I grew up with parents who didn't have that financial education, and I am a single parent. So I have a ton of pressure where it's like, okay, I do want to support my family. I do want to take risks, but I also want to be more informed. So, where can I go to find out this information, baby step my way to where I can be where I want. So
Perfect.
I love that idea.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you. Signing up, basically, because I'm building this, it's going to be a 2023 type launch. But yeah, I've already had a lot of people sign up for it on kind of a newsletter list where I'll continue to send out good financial education every week.
Nice.
So yeah, if you want to sign up for the list, you'll know more about it. Yeah, go to the website and it's all there.
Awesome.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you, Jeff. And thanks for coming and joining us on our podcast. And if anyone's interested in kind of learning a little bit more, we have our financial wellness seminar coming up in a couple weeks here.
September 24th.
Yeah. So feel free to give Ego a call, and we'll make sure you have a seat.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Do you have social media pages or any way that they can find you on the web besides your website, Facebook?
Yes,
TikTok?
I'm everywhere. I'm not on TikTok.
Not yet.
I watch it. I just can't figure out how to do it yet.
100%. I get it.
Yeah, and my kids are like, well, Dad, you should get on there. So maybe they'll help me get on there soon enough.
Yeah.
But you can find me on Facebook. But yeah, my company, Sierra Ocean, the website, you can find out there. But really, because I'm in a couple different places, probably just jeffburrow.com is going to be the best place to find me.
Nice.
And you can launch from all the other websites and social media from there.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Thanks again for coming.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
Thank you for listening to Awaken Your Ego, a podcast that explores biohacking and self-discovery. We hope you follow us on Instagram and Facebook to stay up to date on what we're working on in your area.